Unleashed, Riftbound's second expansion is coming out in the West very soon, and it brings with it a host of mechanics never before seen in the game. So we're gonna talk XP, level, hunt, ambush, and battlefield tokens. Rules, strategies around them, design considerations, and my opinions on each of them all in one video. I'm Simon from Games Deconstructed, and let's get started. The first of these mechanics is experience, or XP for short. It's a resource counter you get as a player that increases as you gain XP and decreases as you spend it. Best way to explain it is to look at the XP tracker token you can find in Unleashed boosters. As effects instruct you to gain XP, you would increment this XP tracker, probably by placing dice on the token. The amount belongs to you, the player, so it doesn't become inactive or lost when your legend is exhausted, or at the end of turn, or when units that gained it for you die, or anything else. You just have it. It can't be messed with, can't be shared with teammates in multiplayer, it's just there so I can say that I, Simon, have 6 XP currently. And as you get that XP, you can get benefits from reaching certain amounts of it, that's level, or you can spend it as a cost for certain effects. The XP tracker gasses them up as powerful, but there's also weak ones, if you'd like. To gain XP, you'll be using cards that give it as part of their effects, often on play, or have the newly added keyword Hunt, meaning they give XP every time they conquer or hold. If multiple units with Hunt are involved, they all activate. So if I conquer with 2 Voracious Gromps, I'll get a whopping 6 XP. These are the builders in our builder-spender threshold relationship that we have here. On the reward side, let's look at level first. You'll find it on cards like this Would You Master legend. It gives your units +1 might as a passive if you're level 6 or above, and causes your units to enter ready upon reaching 11. If your XP counter is currently 7, that means you're level 7 and the first ability is active, but the second is not. If you gain 4 more XP, the second ability switches on immediately. If you had another guy with a level 6 requirement and 7 XP, both of their level 6 abilities would now be active. It's a single requirement, so you don't need 12 XP, even though it's 2 level 6 requirement dudes. Level only looks at your current XP value, not your best ever. So if you spend 2 of that 7 XP, you'll be downgraded to level 5, and Would You Master's first ability will switch off again. Now, level benefits are not limited to passives. There's level abilities that replace the normal card effect with a better one, ones that modify the card's cost, or even add full-on activated abilities. All of these work in the same way. If your XP value is not yet at or above the indicated level, treat the line of text after the keyword as if it doesn't exist. Our alternative XP spenders look like these. They most often appear as costs for activated abilities. Some standalone, some combined with exhausting the card. As you activate the ability, you lower your XP total, which lowers your level. This happens in the pay cost step of creating the ability's chain item. Then the effect will go on the chain like any other activated ability would. Now, from a design perspective, XP is what designers call parasitic design. That means that it's a mechanic that only interacts with itself. To illustrate, if you're not playing XP spenders or level payoff cards of your own, your opponent playing Gardens of Becoming, which can be an XP source for you, does absolutely nothing to improve your game plan. Being able to get that XP without anything to spend it on doesn't translate to additional might, additional card draw, cost reductions, or anything else that matters mechanically on your side of the table. To compare with a different mechanic, let's take Self-Discard. It also has these Discard Matters payoff cards, like Flame Chompers or these Jinx cards that neither you nor I have ever seen, but even if you're not playing any of these, discarding a card will have some mechanical impact on your game. First off, you're gonna have one less card in hand. But that impact might also be having extra cards in the graveyard for a Rasa discount or as a resurrection target. It might even be the Origins classic of hiding a Ride the Wind in the trash so your opponent can't sabotage it and you'll get it back with Annie later. You're not building into the discard archetype, but it impacts some of the other cogs in the machine that is your game plan. Now, since experience doesn't do that necessarily, we can expect a couple of things to happen from a design perspective. First off, there will be dedicated XP Matters Archetypes. The most obvious designs that signpost which these are gonna be are the 3 legends that mention XP in their text box: Kha'Zix, Poppy, and Wuju Master. The first 2 showcase the builder-spender variant of the mechanic, while Master is the face of level, which is the most represented in green, as if they did that on purpose. Somewhat interestingly, both Ka and Poppy are both their own builders and spenders. Each gives you XP for a game action you already want to accomplish, winning combats and holding respectively, but also you can tap them to buff or move friendly units or draw cards in exchange for that XP. These cards being both their own builders and spenders, along with a number of other cards in the set following the same design trend, is a means of smoothing out the variance, ensuring that you won't have games where you draw all your XP sources but nothing to spend them on, or the other way around. You'll always get to draw a card off of Poppy or buff something with Kha'Zix, and you'll always have at least one way of getting XP in your Legend Zone. I'd also like to point out that both of their abilities require the legend to exhaust, a safeguard against players deciding that they'd rather play all builders, no spenders, if they've got an alright unlimited spender in the legend zone already. Level, on the other hand, has kind of an antagonistic relationship with spending XP. If you want to get to level 16 for your Master Yi Unstoppable to live up to his name, you don't really want to put a Kha'Zix Evolving Horror in the same deck, as every activation of Kha'Zix's ability will get you further away from that Master Yi goal. The term Parasitic design gets kind of a bad rap because of what happened with Energy in Magic the Gathering that one time, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be problematic here. My one nitpick is that hitting 6 of level advantages, zoning opponents off of XP, are such iconic League of Legends concepts that I don't really love that they got kind of gated behind an opt-in archetype. I think they found a nice middle ground with Gold, the other iconic LoL resource, where you're always happy to get one incidentally, even if you're not consciously building your deck around Gold synergies. But with XP, a lot of decks won't even bother to mark their experience gains from something like Stare Down if they know they're not playing spenders, which is kind of meh. Though I do recognize that this is a mechanic introduced early within the game's lifespan, and it refers to such an iconic piece of League of Legends that we are probably going to come back to this design space, and who knows, perhaps I'll be pleasantly surprised then. In terms of XP card specifics, Red gets this Burning Dog for 3R, he has Hunt 2 and 4 Might I Enter Ready if you're level 3 or above, Green has 4.5 Builders, Wuju Apprentice with Hunt, Scuttle gains 1 XP on Death Knell, Moss Stomper has Hunt 2, and Herald of Spring has Hunt 1 and grants an additional 2 XP on play. The half is Master Yi's new signature, Alpha Strike, which gives you 1 XP for each unit it kills, but is limited to Master Yi decks only. For XP rewards in green, there's the Master Legend and Champion that we've already seen, Combat Tricks in Combat Experience and Skyward Strike that are unimpressive at low level, but decent if you're at the breakpoints, Honey Fruit starts making energy on level 6, and Wuju Apprentice and Moss Stomper, who you already both know from the Builders section, also benefit from being level 6 and 3 respectively. This is the full list of green level effects, and as you can see it's mostly level 6 that matters, which is a nice League of Legends reference with a little bit of 3 and 11 in there as well. Blue gets a Wind Dog with Hunt 2 and +1 Might and Ganking if you're level 3, Orange has the 3 legends we've already discussed, but beyond them there are the Builders in Blood Rose, a repeatable energy sink that allows you to make XP whenever you play a unit, and is also its own spender, Demacian Diplomat makes XP when played, and so does Poppy Paragon if your opponent is close to winning, Nila prints it when she moves, and Voracious Gromp, crowd favorite Arachnoid Horror, Master Yi Tempered, Orange Kha'Zix, and Gem Hunt Hunter have various amounts of hunt. Finally, Stare Down and Grim Resolve are spells that gain XP in addition to their other effects. On the spender side, Gem Hunt Hunter, Yi Tempered, Concentrate, Targonian Visionary care about levels, specifically 6 and 11, crowd favorite spends 2 XP to buff, and Kha'Zix spends 3 when he attacks to do a green Yasuo impression. Finally, Wily Newtfish has a Full spin on the mechanic, getting +1 and ganking if you've gained XP this turn, a reward for going the XP route that's neither level nor spending. So for orange rewards, the first level that matters is 6 and then 11. And quantities of XP to spend are 1 to buff with Kha'Zix's Legend, 2 to use his move ability or self-buff a crowd favorite, and 3 to draw off Poppy Legend or stab a unit with an attacking orange Kha'Zix. Purple has Scryer's Bloom give 1 XP when its ability activates, Mr. Root give 2 when moved to a battlefield specifically, Kha'Zix Mutating gives 2 when attacking or defending against isolated targets, and Vicious Snapjaws give 1 per other friendly unit that dies. These can be spent, and only spent, no level in this color, to discard a card from the opponent's hand with Insightful Investigator for 2 XP, take control of a bigger enemy unit for 5 with Conscription, which is limited to targets 3 might or under otherwise, or spent to give units that hang out with Megatusk ganking for 3 XP. Finally, yellow gets 1 XP for each friendly unit when Scrutinizing Sergeant is played, 1 when Shepherd's Heirloom slayed, and 1 from Hunt on Enthralling Protector. It can then spend 1 to equip Shepherd's Heirloom to a unit, 2 to buff the Protector, another builder spender, 3 to discount yellow Poppy by 3, or 3 to break parity on Safety Inspector's Cool the Weak on a stick effect. If you choose to hold on to your exp, Bundle Soldier enters ready if you have level 3 or higher. I think that's all of them. Now let's move on to Ambush. Ambush allows units to be played at reaction speed to battlefields where you have units. This is actually 2 rules masquerading as 1. You get permission to play units outside of their normal slow speed, and potentially a second permission to play them onto battlefields you don't necessarily control, provided you have units there. Battlefields you're attacking are a prime example. And it's normally illegal to play units there even if your timing would allow for it, as you don't yet control the BF, but Ambush takes care of all of that. This differentiates cards with this keyword from something like Shen or Janna that we've seen already. Also playable at reaction speed, but only to battlefields that you do control, because that's the overall rule and these champions don't create an exception in the rules text. And playing these Ambush units to battlefields where control is contested is going to be their premier use case. Dropping an Inferna to bolster an otherwise weak attack will accomplish a purpose similar to a Cleave or a Longsword, but she will of course leave a fully functional body on the board should she survive combat. You can also ambush on defense, wait for your opponent to move in with a multi-unit perfectly calculated offensive and drop Vile Maw, rendering them fully impotent. I assume that you're keeping your runes as one big pile in this scenario, and that's why your opponent didn't realize you were holding 8 open when they swung. Bear in mind that the ambush warding is conditional on you actually having units there, which is relevant in certain corner cases where you'd keep control of a battlefield despite not having units there anymore. Let's say you're defending with a Sun Soldier against your opponent's Honest Broker attack. Both of you have a lot of energy open and a full grip of cards in hand, they play Wages of Pain on your soldier, and now you'd be faced with a decision. If you want to respond with an ambush unit, you would have to do so before the Wages resolves, as you'll no longer have units on the battlefield once that happens. If you wanted to keep the spell exchange going, perhaps attempting to remove the broker with your own removal, but keep the option of playing a unit as plan B if that doesn't work, you could do so with a Shen or a Janna, but not with ambush units. And that's because until the end of combat, which the current showdown is a part of, you retain control of the battlefield even if you don't have units there anymore. That means you can play units there, any units, but you have to be able to play them at action or reaction speed, because we're in a showdown and you normally can't play units when that's going on. Ambush units can be played at reaction speed only when they go to battlefields where you have units. So if you lose the units, but not control, it becomes a case of right place, wrong time. Not so much for Shen, who's a very punctual boy. In terms of their strategic use, ambush cards allow you to use those units as quasi-combat tricks. Normally, whether a unit is going to be involved in an attack is a very telegraphed thing. It has to exist in the base, if even for a moment, it has to be ready, you have to physically move the card. Very much not the case with ambush. To continue the combat trick parallel, they most remind me of quick draw equipment. Both can be played in combat, representing additional might that's not visible on board before you commit, but that gets you value long term. not just until the end of turn like a Cleave or a Discipline would. For quick draw equips, they will stick around even if their holder dies, allowing you to attach them to future units, whereas for ambush units, you get to keep using them in normal unit ways if they survive combat. Which, if they stick around, is arguably better. A longsword on its own is not gonna conquer or hold many battlefields, while an Inferna very much can. On the flip side, if I miscalculate and play the Inferna to a combat which I then lose, off to the trash she goes. So kind of a higher risk, higher reward version of quick draw equipment. Now, here's two example play patterns where using ambush units might allow you to eke out an advantage over your opponent. You attack into an opponent's battlefield with a slightly stronger unit, let's say Daring Poro on your side versus Lonely Poro on mine. You can pass focus to me to see if I want to commit a combat trick or a removal spell to this exchange. If I do, and on guard my Poro to turn the loss into a win, you drop your Stalking Wool, replacing your 3 might with a 6 and win the combat, having baited out a combat trick. If I don't and you just take it, you have the option of doing something else with that energy. Maybe you play the wolf either way, maybe you play it to base now, maybe you play another unit entirely. So the timing on these cards allows you to bait the opponent out, ask if they want to commit first, without requiring that you commit anything yourself. Option 2 is gonna be more defensive. Let's say you control both battlefields but with very small units. I have a Darius Trifarius in base who will definitely be able to take over at least one of them. Fortunately, you have enough energy to barricade one of these battlefields with a Vilemaw. Problem is, if you do that, I'll just head to the other one with my Darius and you will be tapped out. So what you can do in this scenario is pass, temporarily blind me with Sun so I don't realize you're holding 10 runes open, and wait for me to commit. If I go to Grove of the Godwillow, down comes Vilemaw and you win the exchange. If I go to Hollow Tomb, same story. If I attempt to play around it by buffing my Darius, so it will be a worthy opponent for the Vilemaw, who I'm expecting despite the sand in my eyes, you can wait for me to move in with that monster of a Noxian and dodge him fully, playing the Vilemaw to the other battlefield. In both of these scenarios, you're delaying your decision to play the unit, which accomplishes a couple of objectives. You bait your opponent into giving you more information, you ask them to play first, potentially opening themselves to getting blown out by counterplay, and you're keeping your options open to play something else until the very last moment, which is a very good thing in the game overall, and comes as a kind of bundle package deal with the mechanic of ambush. There's currently 12 ambush cards in the game. Green gets Vilemaw for 8, you know him already. Blue has Chakram Dancer for 3, representing more than 3 might on defense. Red has Inferna for 2, Grim Apothecary for 3 with an immediate friendly bounce effect, and Lord Broadmane for 5R, who represents more than 5 might on offense, as a kind of red counterpart to Chakram Dancer. Orange has Nidalee for 3-0 and one of the many Rengars for 5-0. Purple has Diana and Kha'Zix, both for 4p, and finally yellow has Vi for 5y, who's a 5 might and an immediate stun when played on attack. Poppy, who's nominally a 6y, but can be a 3y if you have 3 XP to spend, and Stalking Wolf for 4y and an additional cost of sacrificing an adorable critter you control. So for a lot of colors, the ability to plop down an ambush unit will be telegraphed by holding up 3 or more energy open. The one exception to that might be red with Inferna. Finally, this third mechanic is gonna be short and sweet because it only appears on 2 cards, but I think it's by far my favorite in the expansion, and that's of course battlefield tokens. The 2 cards I'm talking about here is Baron Nashor, which creates a third battlefield, the Baron Pit token, and Ivern, who can replace an existing battlefield with a brush token, overriding its effects with the Forest Creatures Anthem bonus. Now, battlefields are one of my favorite design elements in Riftbound. They create a lot of these small decisions and considerations which take a moment to properly appreciate, which makes me feel very cultured. You know, which ones you even put in a deck, which you play when going first versus second, which you conquer first if you have to choose between 2 of similar power level. all of these little puzzles place battlefields at the very heart of the game for me. So adding a third battlefield to a 1v1 game of Riftbound is obviously going to be a huge shakeup on all these fronts. Let's then look at Baron and discuss what specifically happens as a result of his effect. The less interesting bits on the card make Baron an expensive late game threat. He can't be easily removed with the same effect as Ruin Runner. There's options to remove him still, of course, Call the Weak and related effects, or AoE like Unchecked Power or Ruination, I guess. You can also punch through his 12 might the standard way if that's something that can be accomplished by your deck. And you will want to kill him, as his Anthem effect of +2 to your opponent's other creatures gives the opponent the upper hand in fighting for the non-Baron battlefields as well. But the main event here is his first ability. Let's break it down. As you play him, the key part here being the As, meaning the ability is not an on-play trigger, it doesn't create a chain item with Baron already on the board, and it doesn't open a reaction window before the Baron pit is added. If there isn't already a Baron pit, you add it to the board as an extra battlefield. Bear in mind this doesn't differentiate between your versus the opponent's Baron pits, it just checks if one exists already. So if you play Baron, who creates a pit, and then I play my Baron, we don't get a second pit. Finally, if the pit was created, the Baron appears there. It's not a movement ability, it's just his initial location can't be reacted to, skirting the usual rules of only playing units to battlefields you control. Because of course you don't yet control the newly created Baron pit. If there is already an empty Baron pit, as a result of this being, let's say, the second Baron of the game, he doesn't appear in the pit, you can't choose to play him in the pit unless you control the battlefield already. Now if the pit was successfully created, you just played Nash to a battlefield you don't yet control. This is a conquer attempt. A showdown will start, and if Baron or another of your units is left standing in the pit at the very end of it, you conquer and score as you would on any other battlefield. The battlefield itself allows units to move there from anywhere on the board, base or other battlefields, a quasi-ganking. Bear in mind that standard move limitations still apply, like having to be ready if you want to use the standard move of a unit. Now, some ideas as to how a third battlefield changes the core rules of the game here. First off, to win by what used to be called a double conquer, but now might be referred to as a triple conk, it does require a player to conquer all 3 battlefields within the same turn. What's more, the Baron Pit is treated as a battlefield by any and all effects that mention battlefields in the rules text. It will allow you to potentially draw 1 more from a seat of power, units on it will get damaged by unleashed power, you can hide cards on it, and it doesn't go away if the Baron dies or anything, so we are playing with 3 battlefields for the rest of the game. Now, moving on from Baron, Ivern presents another approach to the idea of token battlefields. Upon conquer or hold, he allows you to replace the existing battlefield you just conquered or held with a brush token. Probably by placing it on top of the battlefield or, physically replacing the battlefield with a token card. All abilities of that old battlefield immediately become inactive, and the brush comes with an aura that's kind of Trifarian war camp for birds, cats, dogs, Poros, and Iverns, a Trifarian war camp, if you will. When a player scores on the brush, conquer or hold, they may have the original battlefield come back. The you in that sentence refers to the scoring player, not necessarily the Ivern player who created the brush. So the opponent can get rid of the brush if they take over the BF. There's a couple of interesting ideas to be accomplished using these brush tokens. One that gets a lot of traction in the Rules Questions channel on the Discord is what happens if you replace Aspirant's Climb with the brush token. Is it then possible for a player who's at 8 points to win? And the current consensus is that yes, the points needed to win do indeed change when Aspirant is replaced with a brush. Interestingly, if Aspirants comes back, we're back to playing till 9. The first funky interaction that might happen as a result of this is being able to win off of a single conquer. If I push into aspirants at 7 points, I can score to 8 normally, without having to have scored the other battlefield, since it's not yet the final point of the game, we are playing till 9. I then replace it with a brush, we check the victory condition on the very next cleanup, and I'm at 8 points of 8 required, so I win. Provided the opponent is not also at 8, which is entirely possible since we were playing until 9 just moments ago. Should that be the case, the game continues with normal scoring rules from Conquer versus Hold until at least one of us is able to break the point tie. In a different scenario, let's say I'm at 7, I conquer the brush that used to be Aspirant's Climb. If I haven't scored the other battlefield this turn, I'll get the Consolation card and won't get to score to 8, even if I intend to get Aspirant's Climb back with the Conquer effect of the brush. And that's because scoring happens before Conquer effects. And until Aspirants comes back, I'm 1 point away from victory, so I don't get to score. Only after we resolve that effect does the score target come back to 9 when the brush goes away. Of course, at that point, if I conquer the other battlefield after, I still win. As a final fun exercise, let's combine these two cards. Let's combine Baron and Ivern. Let's say my opponent is a Baron aficionado and they've created the pit. I conquer it with my Ivern, replacing it with a brush. The current interpretation, and I will post a clarification in the comments if anything changes, is that when my opponent plays another Baron, there's no longer a Baron pit in play, since tokens cease to exist when they leave the board, and the Baron pit left when it was replaced. So Baron will now create a 4th battlefield, and you can probably see where this is going. Combining these two effects can print additional battlefields in a profoundly unserious fashion that's unlikely to occur in actual play, but showcases how fun messing with battlefield rules can be. Now I'm hoping for an effect that destroys a battlefield in Vendetta or one of the future sets that will complete the trifecta here. Thanks a lot for watching, I will greatly appreciate if you like, subscribe and leave me a comment about which of these mechanics you're most excited for. I've been Simon from Games Deconstructed. Thanks a lot for watching, and a special thank you to the Patreon supporters over on patreon.com/gamesdeconstructed, especially Maciej Majka, Jakub Burdun and Michał Gawarkiewicz. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.